Cheers and welcome to the revenge season. Last MLB season was a massive disappointment for me. The season before that, unbelievable, right? Finished 44 units in the green, cleared over 20 units on futures. But 2023 was a nightmare compared to 2022. We finished 8.46 units in the red and only cleared a few units on futures. It was my first season in any sport in the red. And it's my favorite sport, baseball. Major League Baseball, to be more exact. If you followed during the season, you know that variance wasn't on our side, but that's life. That's baseball. Why complain when I can take my vengeance out on this season? Here is the overall record. You can see it somewhere above me in both the NFL and the MLB over the past 3 seasons. Very good. My largest bet to this point has stayed 4 units or lower. Right? The largest bet I've ever given out was 4 units. The largest bet I gave out this season was the San Francisco 49ers minus the 2.5. They won 42-19 over the Eagles. Good for me. On plays that are 3 units or higher, I am 11-2. Sounds all great, right? And it's an outstanding hit rate that I'm very proud of. But does that make this bet a lock? No, of course not. But what I am about to do is give you the most information on a bet in the history of sports betting. Some people call it the most surgical pitch in the history of sports betting. Not me. People, not me. Before I talk to you about the play, remember I am playing it on BetMGM. Right now, BetMGM is running a promo that you have to take advantage of. You can use your bonus bets on this play. Bet $5 on standard odds minus 110, and you'll instantly get $158 of bonus bets when you sign up using code JustBaseball. Why? Well, Super Bowl 58. Books like BetMGM, they don't give out free money like this often. So go take advantage. It's an absolute no-brainer that extends into the Super Bowl. And if you're watching this after the fact, let's say after the Super Bowl, you can still get a deposit match up to $1,500 using code JustBaseball. Remember, must be 21 or older. Terms and conditions apply. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. It's time. My biggest bet of my life, MLB 2024 win total future. Let's talk about the Miami Marlins. Before discussing the team, I want to review the Marlins' success in 2023. In 2022, the Marlins finished 69-93 with really no clear direction for their future. They didn't have a great farm system, still don't, and little money to spend on free agents. But that's enough pieces to make the over on 76.5 win total interesting, right? They traded away Pablo Lopez, which was a big blow to the staff, but it worked out. Luis Arias was the piece that returned to Miami. He hit .354, running away with the batting title. They wouldn't trade Luis Arias, right? Jorge Soler hit 36 bombs and put up a 1.9 FWAR. Both were the second highest of his career. Jesus Sanchez and Chaz Chisholm Jr., John Birdie recorded an OPS plus over 100. Remember, OPS plus 100 is league average. So all 3 of those guys were above league average. They traded for Jake Berger, Josh Bell at the deadline. Both outperformed their career averages. Most of the Marlins hitters were near or set career highs. On the pitching side, Sandy didn't perform. He's out for 2023. But Jesus Zardo certainly did, posting a career high in innings at 178 with a solid 3.96 expected ERA. Yuri Perez burst onto the scene, throwing 91 innings as a 20-year-old to a 3.61 expected ERA. He's so good. Braxton Garrett emerged as well, throwing 150 innings at a 4.61 expected ERA. The ERAs for these pitchers were much better than their performances. That was a wink. Did you see that? The Marlins bullpen had a weird year. They finished 21st in ERA, but had solid contributions from a few key cogs. Tanner Scott, Andrew Nardi, AJ Puck, George Sorianos, and JT Chargois posted ERAs under 4.0. Pretty good. The issue was the rest of the bullpen. I expect bullpen to be better than last year's unit, but that's if they keep everyone. Let's talk about the one-run game record. Regression is about to hit the Miami Marlins like a truck. A team's records in one-score games often regress. The 2022 Marlins were 26-41 in one-run games. That was the most one-run losses since the 1975 Astros and 2 shy of the 1968 White Sox for the most in the live ball era. The Marlins went 69-93 that year, which makes sense. The one-run luck was not on their side. The 2023 Marlins, completely different story. The Miami Marlins set a record to start an MLB season by going 12-0 in one-score games. It was terrific. Literally Every bounce went their way. They got the game-winning hit. The bullpen did enough to close the door. Marlins fans were heads over heels, and why wouldn't that be? It had a unique feel, right? That doesn't happen. That was an MLB record. It was lucky, but hey, a win is a win. Congrats to the 2023 Marlins. They ended up finishing 33-13 in one-run games, a .717 winning percentage. That was the 7th best mark in Major League Baseball, tied with the 1909 Pittsburgh Pirates. However, the 1908 and 1909 Pirates hold spots on this list. I decided to kind of move past teams that had played in the dead ball era, right? The era of plumbers, respectfully. The era of plumbers, pre-1920. The Rays also had a 14-5 record in one-score games in 2020, but as we know, it's kind of too small of a sample, right? 2020, COVID year, we remember that. Remember Tiger King? Yeah. I'm just going to leave that to the side. The 1981 Orioles made this list as well, but that was a player strike, right? 2 months were removed in 1981. So if we take out seasons in the dead ball era, I think that's fair. Pre-1920, shortened seasons, right? Do you want to talk COVID? We can talk COVID if you want. I didn't think it was necessary. Or the season that had a strike in it. I think it's fair to put those teams out of the way. And let's talk about the 4 teams that remain. The 1954 Cleveland Indians, 32-13 in one-run games for a .711 winning percentage. The Indians were 1 win away from tying the Marlins one-run record from last year. So let's include them. This 1954 Cleveland squad was a regular season juggernaut. They finished the season with a 111-43 record, one of the best in Major League Baseball history. They went on to be swept, though, in the World Series, but that doesn't matter, right? We're looking at regular season stats. But 1955, the year after, was less kind. They went 93-61 and missed the playoffs. That is a drop-off of 18 wins from the previous year. Put that in the back of your mind. 1970 Baltimore Orioles went 40-15 in one-run games, .727 winning percentage. The 1970 Baltimore Orioles finished 108-54. They were the best team in the league from when the season began, finishing with a World Series ring after beating the Reds in 5 games. The 1971 Orioles had the same team and got most of the production from 1970. However, they finished with 7 fewer wins during the regular season and lost in the World Series. Again, which doesn't matter, but 7 fewer wins in the regular season certainly does. What about the 2012 Baltimore Orioles? They went 29-9 in one-score games, .763 winning percentage. The 2012 Orioles finished 93-69, finishing 2nd in the American League East. They made the playoffs, but lost to the Yankees in the American League Division Series. The 2013 Orioles, remember the year after? It took a step back, finishing 85-73 and missing the playoffs. It's a drop-off of 8 wins from the previous season. Funny enough, 2013 was the year Chris Davis had that monster year, hitting 53 home runs. The 2012 team didn't have a player that was even close to Chris Davis's level in 2013, but still finished with 8 more wins. Chris Tillman also had a better year as the Orioles ace in 2013 than Wai-Yin Chen did in 2012. So 2012 Orioles to 2013, a drop-off of 8 wins. How about the 2016 Texas Rangers, 36-11 in one-run games to give them a .776 winning percentage. The 2016 Texas Rangers won the American League West with a record of 95-67. It was pretty much the same team in 2017, but the Rangers fell to a 78-84 record, marking the first of 5 straight losing seasons. That's a loss of 17 wins from the previous season. So, teams who finished with a winning record of 7-10 or higher in one-run games averaged 12.5 more losses the previous season. Let's talk about the 2024 current Miami Marlins. I'm going to run you through the roster, and you tell me how much confidence you have in them. Let's talk about some key injuries first. The 2022 unanimous Cy Young Award winner, Sandy Alcantara, one of those. He's really, really good if you've never seen him before. I always weirdly can't pronounce his last name. That's a me problem, not a him problem. But unfortunately, he's not going to be available for the season after undergoing Tommy John surgery. He was not nearly as dominant in 2023, but he still led the Marlins in innings at 184, worth 2.9 FWAR, posting a 4.14 ERA and a 4.03 FIP. The Marlins are going to miss him greatly. Let's talk about some free agents that are gone. Well, Jorge Soler remains a free agent and is unlikely to return to Miami. He's coming off a season where he hit 36 jacks, like I said, the second most in his career. It was his second best season by WRC Plus and FWAR. The Marlins have Jake Burger to supplement some of that power, but they still finished 22nd in home runs as a team. Burger helps, but they didn't really bring in anyone after to complement Burger in the power department. Soler is a significant loss here, but they also lost guys that you don't really think of but are still not on the team and won't be providing anything because they aren't on the team. They lost Joey Wendell, Gene Segura, Garrett Hampson, Jacob Stallings, and Yuli Gurriel. Now, those are not game changers. I'm not here to tell you that because they lost those guys, they're going to stick this year. No, but it's not as if then they replaced them. They decided to plug those holes with older prospects who have not made an impact at the big league level. And Christian Bethancourt, who the Rays decided to get rid of, just like they did Mike Zunino, bottomed out when he left the Rays. And they didn't sign a pitcher either. So they're rolling with the same guys they had last year, but this time without Big Sandy. The roster started catcher, Nick Fortes, Christian Bethancourt. Nick Fortes had a career high in games played at 108 last year and put up a 53 WRC plus, 47% worse than league average. They have Bethancourt as well, who the Rays got rid of for nothing. First base, Josh Bell. Josh Bell put up an 818 OPS with the Marlins after he was acquired in the middle of the season. Over the entirety of 2023, 105 WRC plus, 0.4 FWAR. He finished 17th out of 24 qualified first basemen in WRC plus and 21st in FWAR. He may continue at an 818 OPS as he did in his brief cameo for the Marlins, but I'd bet against that. If he gets hurt, they can call on Jake Burger to slide over, but then they have nobody at third base. Second base, Luis Arias, Xavier Edwards, and Vidal Brujan are the backups. Nobody had a problem with Luis Arias. That's not the reason I'm against the Marlins. He's the best player on the team. He's fantastic with the bat. But he did finish 10th in FWAR at his position last season because he's had a very bad defensive season. I don't think he's a bad defender. I just think he had a bad defensive season, and I don't think it's going to get much better. But that 3.4 FWAR mark was one of the best of his career. His defense is not good, but the bat is, right? Finishing second in WRC plus at the position. He's excellent. No qualms here, right? Backups are, again, that's why I might be concerned. The backups are two prospects who don't project to be stars and have yet to make a big league impact. But second base, we're good. Shortstop, John Birdie, and then, of course, the same two guys, Xavier Edwards and Vidal Brujan as backups. The 34-year-old John Birdie only played 64 games at short last year, so he doesn't qualify on the shortstop leaderboard. In those 64 games, he finished with 1 defensive run saved and 2 outs above average, perfectly fine over there. However, before this past season, he had only played the position in 46 games, so it's still relatively new to him. He put up a 103 WRC plus and 2.1 FWAR in 133 games, placing him 10th in WRC plus and 14th in FWAR among 21 qualified shortstops. Great utility player. I have my doubts on him playing shortstop over an entire season. He's only played over 100 games in total, twice in his career, and he'll be 35 years old at the start of the season. I like John Birdie in a different role. Third base, Jake Burger. Jake Burger can hit, no doubt about it. He put up a 112 WRC plus, 12% above league average in his first season in Chicago over 51 games, then a 120 WRC plus between the Marlins and the White Sox. He only hit 8 home runs in those 51 games in 2022, but he hit 34 jacks last year. It's hard to kind of know what he's going to bring to the table in a full season in Miami, but Zips, good projection system on Fangraphs. Check it out. 27 bombs, 113 WRC plus, 2.2 FWAR. That would put him 10th in WRC plus, 16th in FWAR among 21 qualified third basemen. They do not have a viable replacement if he were to go down. Solid player. Again, not the reason I'm fading the Marlins. Center field, Jazz Chisholm, backup, Peyton Burdick. I've always been lower on Jazz than most. He's got plenty of talent, but his play style combined with the lack of availability puts him on my overrated list. He's got power and speed, handle at the plate, but a 103 WRC plus in 97 games. All right. Played 157 games the past 2 seasons and now plays a challenging position to stay healthy for an entire season. He also strikes out at a 30% rate. He's got plenty of upside, but I'll believe it when I see it. Peyton Burdick is his backup, who played 3 games in center last year and is yet to make a big league impact. Burdick is 27 years old. Left field, Brian De La Cruz, backed up by Peyton Burdick. Brian De La Cruz is an interesting player to project. That is solid first half, 754 OPS, but a bad second half, 661 OPS. He's a fine offensive piece, I think, and he can get hot in an instant. But his overall numbers are way worse than I thought. You're probably wondering, why are you squinting? There's no reason to squint. He was a guy who I always thought was better than the numbers would say. When I watch him hit, I think he's better than he is. 153 games last season, 0.2 FWAR. Dominic Smith and Joey Meneses are the only players who can say they played 153 games with that low of an FWAR. He was the 121st most valuable hitter out of 133 qualified batters by FWAR. The reason I thought he was interesting to project is I do see some talent with the bat, but he's just so bad defensively that he would have to hit at some crazy elite level to be really valuable. I just don't see it. And they don't have a viable replacement. In right field, Jesus Sanchez backed up by Peyton Burdick. I like Sanchez more than I like De La Cruz, but that can only go so far. Sanchez played a career-high 125 games, putting up a 1.3 FWAR and a 109 WRC+. That would have placed him 12th in WRC+ and 14th in FWAR among 17 qualified right fielders. It's one of the few Marlins I expect to be better in 2024. How much better, though, obviously, is the question. Zips has him at a 1.6 FWAR and a 108 WRC+. I'd probably bump that up a little bit, but he won't be a top 10 player at the position, and they don't have a viable replacement. DH, Avisail Garcia. I'm trying to be nice. When you sign a 4-year, $53 million deal, you got your money, and I don't need to be that kind, respectfully. He's been arguably the worst player in the sport last year, and has been since he put on a Marlins uniform. He played 135 games and had 11 home runs in Miami. Not last year. Total. He's been worth negative 1.0 FWAR. He may turn around and put up a 115 WRC+ like he did in 2021, but I highly doubt it. I will pay to see it. What about the offensive outlook? What do we think? I'm sorry, this offense is terrible. Luis Arias and Jake Burger are great, but the rest are mostly below average hitters who can't play any defense. Or at least, all right, some of them are 105 WRC+ guys. They don't have much of a bench. You saw that. They are saving money by going with 25 to 28-year-old prospects without proof that they can take the next step. They will sorely miss Jorge Soler. And everyone with talent has been rumored to be traded. Whether they do or not is another question. But if this team has a bad first half and they're already getting floated in the offseason, are some of them going? Maybe still none of them? It doesn't even matter if none of them go. But there is the possibility that some of them could be on the way out. And the Marlins, they just keep shooting themselves in the foot. In November of 2022, the Marlins brought in hitting coach Brant Brown. The Marlins had a great offensive season last year by their standards, right? A lot of hitters took a step forward. Guess who they credited? Brant Brown for working with them. And I quote, "We watch video together and decide there how the attack plan is going to go, and I can work on that in batting practice, and it tends to show up in the game," said Josh Bell, who called Brant's prep work with Marlins hitters advanced. This is a quote among others from the offense, praising Brown's ability to help them at the plate. This is from the Miami Herald. Guess where he is? Seattle Mariners. You can't make this up. They fired the one GM to get them to the playoffs in Kim Ng. They finally get a hitting coach the Marlins players can get behind. Guess where he's at? Gone. Good for you, Seattle. Way to pick up Brant Brown. Let's talk about the defense. Arguably the most overlooked facet of the game of baseball today. The Marlins finished 28th out of 30 teams in outs above average and 21st in defensive runs saved at -11. Trading for Jake Burger and Josh Bell helps the offense, but the defense suffers. Brian De La Cruz and Luis Arias were two of baseball's worst defenders last year in the 4th percentile of fielding run value. John Birdie has always been solid at short, yet can he play the entire season? Jazz Chisholm graded out well in his first season in center, and Jesus Sanchez is slightly below average. The only good defenders on this team haven't played a full season at their position. Nick Fortes did prove that he can be a good receiver and an incredible blocker. He's an upgrade over what Jacob Stallings did last year, and I know I just ripped on Nick Fortes for his offense, but let's just watch 15 seconds of him blocking balls. He's a really good blocker. I know I'm fading the Marlins, but I like Nick Fortes. I do. I like Nick Fortes. Can't hit, but I like him. Overall, this should be a bottom 3 defensive team once again. I mean, there's a strong possibility they end up as the worst. Defense is often overlooked, right? When evaluating teams, no one cares about defense, but let's look at how the teams who graded out worse than the Marlins in DRS and OAA last year. DRS, Royals, Giants, Red Sox, Mets, Nationals, Phillies, Reds, White Sox, A's. Outs above average, Reds, Red Sox. Only the Reds, Phillies, and Giants finished above 78.5 wins last year. All 3 of those rosters are better than the Marlins. Let's talk about the pitching. The crown jewel of the Marlins, some would say. Ace, Jesus Luzardo. I love Jesus Luzardo. We had him on the Just Baseball show, put up a career year. Also, go check out that interview. Why not? It's on the screen. He's wipeout stuff and proved he can be a workhorse, tallying 178 innings last season. We could go into his expected ERA being a bit higher, right? Near 4, but we're splitting hairs. He's going to shove, barring health. I have no worries about it. He's going to be awesome. I love Jesus Luzardo. Not the reason I'm fading the Marlins. Number 2 pitcher, Yuri Perez, another pitcher I love. We have to remember this team is not going 0-162. They have some excellent players, and Yuri Perez is one of them. He put up a 3.15 ERA and 3.61 expected ERA in 91 innings last season at 20. You know he's box office. However, the Marlins are relying on a 21-year-old to be the number 2, who should be on an innings limit. In 2 professional seasons, Perez has thrown 78 innings in 2021 and 77 innings in 2022. He missed time in 2022 with a shoulder issue. He was sent down to the minors. That's your number 2 pitcher. I love the talent, right? Marlins fans are probably watching this and already freaking hate me, and for good reason. But come on. That's the number 2. Number 3 pitcher, Braxton Garrett. He's pretty good. 2022, 88 innings at a 3.58 ERA, 4.05 expected. More of a 5-and-dive guy, a pitcher who rarely goes beyond the 5th inning. He had a career year last year, throwing 159 innings to a 3.66 ERA and a 4.58 expected. His expected ERA was higher than usual because of his high hard hit rate, which sat in the 8th percentile. Not good. He rocked a 49% ground ball rate last year, and I'll have to replicate it if he continues to allow this much hard contact. This was his first full season as a starter, so it's challenging to predict what will happen in year 2. I'm penciling him in for an ERA in the low 4s, which for your number 3 starter, it's all right. But he's not the reason I'm fading the Marlins, right? I think Braxton Garrett is fine. I think that's fair. Number 4, pitcher, Edward Cabrera. He's a wild card. I mean, the stuff is great. Sitting 96 with the heater, sinker, leaning on the 90-mile-an-hour changeup. Absurd. He's on Pitching Ninja. You've seen him. Throwing a curveball and a slider, and we are looking at an above-average pitch mix. However, he has yet to learn where it's going. He rocked one of baseball's highest walk rates in baseball last year, 15.2%. Horrible. He has strikeout stuff. It's tough to hit him hard, but he has yet to prove that he can be an effective starter over a full season. He's been in the big league since 2021 and has never thrown over 100 innings. He's a wild card because he can look special, but over the entire season, he's not the guy I want as my 4 starter, let alone my 5. Number 5 starter, Trevor Rogers. I mean, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do with Trevor Rogers, the man who finished 2nd in Rookie of the Year voting in 2021, then one of the worst pitchers in baseball in 2022, then he threw 18 innings in 2023. He was dealing with a lat thing, a biceps thing in 2023, 4 starts. Does he come back and dominate like he did in 2021? Another injury-plagued season? Does he come back healthy and just not perform? I don't know. The odds are just not in his favor, right? I'm wishing the best for him. I think he's talented. However, if I'm the Marlins, I need a safer bet in my rotation. And then who's the 6th? Let's say one of these guys goes down. You got Sixto Sanchez, you got Max Meyer, and you got Ryan Weathers. Sixto Sanchez's last pitch in Major League Baseball was in 2020. A once-top prospect has struggled to stay on the field, and I have no reason to believe that this year will be any different. He was recently throwing in the mid-80s in a rehab assignment. Ryan Weathers has yet to make a real impact in the majors, pitching to a 5.88 ERA in 156 innings. Max Meyer is the guy who I think wins this spot, and in terms of talent, should be in the lead. I think, arguably, you want me to be real with you 1 second, he should be in this rotation. But if he's healthy, right, he's recovering from Tommy John surgery. And he's only got 6 big league innings under his belt, like where he allowed 5 runs. I mean, I'm grasping at straws here. This is supposed to be the Marlins rotation. This is the best part of the team. Does that feel good to you? Let's talk about the bullpen. Finished 21st in ERA and 13th and 5th last season. It's neither good nor bad. Just, Tanner Scott is a stud. He's a beast. I have no issues with him. Andrew Nardi put up a 9.82 ERA in 2022 and 2.67 in 2023. Both his fastball and slider were excellent last year, and barring unforeseen circumstances, I think he could be above average again. AJ Puck, amazing at times, downright unusable at times. JT Chargois and George Soriano, fine pieces. It's not a bullpen I'm scared of, but it's also not a unit that's giving me confidence. Right? Fine. We're good. Okay. But here's where things get interesting. While there is talent here, they have a tough task. This bullpen was 12th in innings last year, but now that Sandy's innings are out, they'll be counted on even more. Makes sense. They don't really have a swingman type they can rely on. George Soriano has thrown multiple innings before, but is he their guy, right? I don't know. I don't think so. And outside of Luzardo, when we look at the rotation, who's going 6? Yuri? Innings limit? Trevor? Hasn't done that in a while. Edward Cabrera never does it. Braxton, I mean, he's still a 5-and-dive guy. So, considering the Marlins failed to add reinforcements in the offseason, this is going to be in the hands of a bullpen that housed a few breakouts last year. If all of them perform at the same level with a tougher workload, we're looking at a group that's still finished in the bottom 10 of ERA. And it has a lot to do with the terrible defense behind them, right? We could talk about ERA estimators. Why are the Phillies pitchers always worse in the ERA estimator department? It's because their defense is terrible. The Marlins are the same way, arguably worse. So you can keep saying, well, they're going to bounce back. Look at the FIP. Look at the XFIP. Look at the Sierra. Look at the defense. You can identify talent here, but the ball will be in play more often than not. Marlins fans know that anything can happen here. Higher workload for these guys. You don't have Sandy's innings anymore. So let's just talk about our overall outlook. This is a roster that I would look to bet the under on without the 1-run record from last season. This is also an organization that has yet to be successful back-to-back years in years. Last season, Miami won 84 games. The last time they went over 78.5 wins was 2016. The time before that, 2010. The Marlins are also in a strange spot. They hired Kim Ang, who made some great moves, and the team made the playoffs for the first time since 2020. They gave her 1 year before relieving her of her duties. Now Marlins players are on the trade block, whether that's Luis Arias, Jesus Luzardo, Tanner Scott, or more. It's all rumors, but it points to an organizational direction. This team does not want to spend money, which is evident based on their offseason. They lost Soler. They lost Sandy, arguably 2 of their best 4 players. Instead of recouping assets, the only move they made was adding Christian Bethcourt and Vidal Brujan. Come on. And again, they lost veterans, right? We already talked about Wendell, Hampson, Euler Gurriel, Stallings, but what about David Robertson and Matt Moore, 2 relievers they got over the deadline? I know they're not big pieces, but it would be nice to have them. They don't. The rest of the National League is improving, while the Marlins are worsening. I expect the Mets to bounce back, right? Let's just look at the bigger picture. You expect the Mets to be better. Phillies and Braves are spoken for. The Nationals have a real shot of overperforming the Marlins as well. Ask yourself, are the Marlins better than the Pirates? Maybe. Pirates are at 73.5. I think they're in the same bucket, but 5 wins separate them. Now you could say, well, that means there's value on the Pirates. I just think there's value on this under. The Padres are on the opposite end of the Marlins. They finished -14 in 1-run games. So you would at least assume positive regression from them. Giants have had a better offseason. You still got the Dodgers. You still got the Diamondbacks. You expect the Cardinals to bounce back. I still like the Brewers. I like the Reds. I like the Cubs. There is a world where the Marlins do not finish exceeding 70 games and finish as one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. This situation is more likely than going over 78.5, in my opinion. I'm taking the under 78.5 on BetMGM for the biggest bet of my life. The biggest bet of my life is the Miami Marlins under 78.5 wins plus 100 on BetMGM. Now it's -110. Take it. Take it down to 76.5. Take it down. I make the line 74.5. Way too big of a line. Why is it too big of a line? Well, they won 84 games last year. What are you going to drop it up? 7, 8, 9? This team, there's a legitimate chance that it's them and the Rockies as the worst team in Major League Baseball. In the National League, at least. You still got the A's. There it is, folks. And if you skip to the end and didn't hear my entire pitch, the least you can do is hit the subscribe button. And if you did hear it all the way through and you do like it, hit the subscribe button. If you don't like it and you're fading, hit the subscribe button. It's free. Make sure to use that promo on BetMGM. Subscribe to the YouTube page. It's going to be a great year. I'm very, very excited. You got my full effort. Balls to the wall. Lock in. Why not us? See you in the next video. Peace.